Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings. We air every Wednesday at 1 p.m. This program comes to you from Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranakon. And it comes to you in two parts. Our first part today will introduce a song to you, and we will talk about its main themes and who sings it, what the song's about, just general things like that. Then we will listen to the song and analyze the lyrics. And when we listen to those lyrics, we're going to look especially at any difficult vocabulary, slang, idioms, anything in the song that may be a little bit hard to understand. We'll then go to our news and the latest updates from the university, as always.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, friends. My name is Gary Gray. I'm your host for Musical Musings. I'm a teacher here at Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranakon. I come from the United States, and I've been here for several years, and we've just started recording this program, Musical Musings, over this past year. So for today's song, what we're going to be listening to is a song called I Left My Heart in San Francisco. This is an old song. Many different people have sung this song. It's kind of considered an old classic song where a lot of old singers will sing it, and they'll put their own twist on it, their own version of it. And today we're going to be listening to the song as it's sung by Tony Bennett. So that's the name of our singer today, Tony Bennett. And the reason we're going to choose Tony Bennett as our singer for this song, even though I told you many people have sung the song, we're going to go with Tony Bennett because sadly he just passed away in this past week. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that this year. A lot of very famous singers have died this year. We had Harry Belafonte, who we covered on this program. We had Tina Turner, who we've covered on this program. Not sure who else, but there have been others. We've lost a lot of great singers this year. So Tony Bennett, when he passed away, he was 96 years old, so he was quite old. He had a very good, long life. So he's been performing. Wow, he started when he was really young, so he's been performing for almost 80 years now. And of course, since that crosses over into decades, it is actually 8 different decades that he has been performing in. So that's a long time. That's basically since the 1940s he's been singing. So he's been around a long time. And he comes from a group of singers which we kind of refer to as the crooners. A crooner, that's a weird word. It refers to kind of a sound. It's not even really a pleasant sound, which is very interesting that we use that word when we talk about crooning. It's almost like just kind of a loud sound, not very pleasant. If we talk about crooning, it's almost like bad singing, so it's kind of a weird word that we use that way. Because none of the singers are bad that we call crooners. They're actually very famous, great singers. They're wonderful. Because most of them are older singers, sadly, most of them have passed away by now. And in fact, Tony Bennett was called by a lot of people when he passed away. He was called the last of the crooners. But because most of them are old, I'm not sure you will have heard of most of them. So I don't know that I can list off a bunch of them and see if you know them. Someone like Bing Crosby might be considered a crooner, or Jimmy Durante, but I'm not sure you know those names. One name that maybe maybe some of you will know, is Frank Sinatra, because he was very famous, very, very famous. Now, still, he's been gone for a long time as well. He passed away many years ago, so still maybe a lot of you haven't even heard of him either, but he was probably the most famous of the crooners, again, as they're called. Tony Bennett was one of the most famous ones. Frank Sinatra was probably the most famous, but Tony Bennett was probably, I don't know, top 5? At least top 10. But maybe top 5 among the crooners. He was one of the best ones, one of the most well-known. So what is the style of music? When you think about singers back in the 1950s and 60s, when they were really at their height, that's when these guys were most popular. It's really a difficult kind of genre to put a label on. We talked about this when we did the Harry Belafonte song because he's also fairly old. He was, I believe, 80-something when he passed. He's a little bit younger than Tony Bennett, but he's also pretty old. The best phrase I could put to it when we did the Belafonte episode, and if you look it up online, they will actually kind of agree with this, is that they call it traditional pop music. So when you think of pop music today, even something like K-pop, which I know a lot of Thai people like, that just means it's Korean pop music, so it's pop music. So it's music like that. Of course, it sounded a lot different back in the 1950s and 60s. Like today, it's really light and airy and upbeat. So the songs were still kind of upbeat usually when we're talking about pop songs. Because they're meant to make you feel good. They're nice songs. But they're not... They don't have like this particular style to them like maybe heavy metal would, or some jazz music has certain instruments that they'd use. Or, for example, we've listened lately to a lot of country music on here, and there's a certain style to that. There's a certain type of story that they tell. Sometimes they even bring in different instruments as well when we're doing country music. So when we're talking about pop music, that, like I said, although the sound has changed quite a bit, it's the same idea as modern pop music. When you think about just kind of upbeat music, really focuses on the singing, not so much the instrumentation. There always is instrumentation. You need some instruments in the background to help with the music, but it's really focused on the singing. So that's really the kind of music that these old-style crooners would sing. So we would refer to that as traditional pop music. Now, a lot of them, with the focus being on the singing, they'd change it up a little bit. Sing a different song here, a different song there. So they actually would sing some swing music, which is a little bit older style. They'd sing some jazz music, some show tunes. So they would sing some different things. But generally, it would fall under the category of pop music. Okay, so one other thing about Tony Bennett, which I think you'll find interesting because we can relate this more to the modern times, is that recently he did a duet. And not just one song. I think he did 2 albums, actually, 2 full albums, not just one song. But he recently did a duet with a very modern singer who I'm sure almost all of you know. He did a duet with Lady Gaga. And it was very interesting because Lady Gaga kind of has a reputation of being this bad girl. She's really changed that a lot over the last 5 or 10 years. And actually, she's a lot of Americans used to not like her, like especially older Americans, because she was too controversial. She's actually changed a lot of her style in the last 5 or 10 years, and most people actually do like her now. And this actually helped her as well with that group of people that are a little bit like, Lady Gaga, we don't really like her. So doing this with this old 1950s, 60s guy, it was a pretty big deal that Lady Gaga was doing this duet with Tony Bennett. And as I explained, it wasn't just one song. It's a whole couple of albums worth of songs. They even did some touring, did some performances together. And there's a really wonderful story about this. There's a really great story about this with Lady Gaga. In fact, they even did a whole episode on a news program in America about this, for a whole hour-long news program about this. So as I mentioned, Tony Bennett just passed away. He died from a disease called Alzheimer's. Don't know if you've heard of that. But you know how a lot of times some old people will start to forget things? That is usually caused by either a disease called dementia or Alzheimer's. So when you see old people start to forget things, it's usually Alzheimer's or dementia. And Tony Bennett had Alzheimer's. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, and even I didn't understand this for a long time, is it can actually kill you. It doesn't seem like a disease that would kill you. You know, it's just affecting your memory. You just forget stuff. That's all, right? No, it just so happens that that's the first part of your brain that it attacks. So it does attack other parts of your brain, like the things that control how you move, and even if you can control your lungs and your breathing and things like that. It's just the first thing it attacks is your memory. And so it seems like that's all it's doing. Because for the first 6 months, year, however long, it can progress at different rates with different people. That's all you see of it. That's the big thing you see, is that, oh, they can't remember anything. So that's kind of the way it looks, but it actually can kill you, and that's what he died of. And so he wasn't diagnosed with it until 2021, and that was really around the time he was doing this stuff with Lady Gaga. So he really just seemed very forgetful at the time. I'm not sure if he was actually diagnosed by the time he was doing the duets with Lady Gaga. I think they started it before then. I think he was diagnosed with it during that time. And so there's a really amazing story about Tony Bennett and doing these duets with Lady Gaga. So one thing they noticed with Tony is that he was having a lot of trouble because he couldn't remember anything. And so he was just normal life things. He was having trouble functioning. But usually with these diseases, you forget the more recent stuff first. And so he had been performing so long that all the music was still with him. So it was like he couldn't do anything for himself in his normal life. But as soon as the music started, boom, he was back to his old self. And he could perform all of his music. He didn't need to look at any of the lyrics on a piece of paper, anything like that. Boom, he could just go right for it. So it was really special. And then what made it like doubly special is that it really seemed like he didn't even know who Lady Gaga was. He kind of knew that he was performing with someone. You know, there's this woman here, okay? We're doing our music. And like I said, he could get into his music because he was able to retain that. So, okay, here we go, doing our music. There's this lady we're doing our music with. There's this woman here. The whole time that Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett were rehearsing, Tony Bennett never said her name. And then while they were performing together on stage, the whole time he never says her name. So Lady Gaga thinks that he doesn't even know who the heck she is. Then on the very last performance they were doing, he comes out on stage first. He's doing his thing. And then Lady Gaga comes out and he turns to her and he looks at the crowd and he's like, "Oh my God, Lady Gaga," and says her name, and she almost completely fell apart. You can see there's actually video of this on YouTube, and you should go look it up. If you look up, like, Tony Bennett recognizes Lady Gaga, and you can see Lady Gaga, she's just trying to laugh to cover her tears, so she kind of bends over laughing that Tony Bennett just introduced her and stuff like that. She was interviewed about this afterwards, and she was like, yeah, that was all her just trying to cover her emotions up because she was about ready to break down crying because Tony Bennett actually knew who she was. So it's a really special event. So anyway, that's the story behind Tony Bennett. So he's a very special guy. A lot of people really like him. He's, sometimes the older guys, the older ones can be a little bit out of touch with the younger generation. Tony Bennett always seemed to, try to be up to date. And that's kind of why he did this duet with Lady Gaga. So even though he was kind of viewed as an old guy by most of the young people, so the young people didn't listen to him very much, he never really disappeared entirely. And in fact, when he did this duet with Lady Gaga, it kind of brought him back out to the forefront, which is why they did this whole news thing on him. So he's always been pretty popular. All right, so that's his background. So now one of the reasons we talked a lot is, well, first of all, he's just an interesting person to talk about. But the song we're going to do is actually a pretty short song. It's only about 2 minutes long. And so the song we're going to do is I Left My Heart in San Francisco. And it's just about him loving the city of San Francisco. As I told you, many people have done this song. So I don't know if Tony Bennett really loves San Francisco. I think he's from New York. Like most of the crooners are from the eastern part of the U.S. before all of the kind of entertainment industry moved to the West. It used to be focused in New York, and since most of these crooners are older people, they come from that early part of the entertainment industry when it was mostly out of New York City. And I believe that's where Tony Bennett comes from. So I don't know if he really loves San Francisco. He may not. He may just like the song. I don't know. All right. So the song is really just about loving San Francisco. It's a very short song. So we're going to jump into it now. So, all right. So for any of you who are joining us on YouTube, if you've listened to us before, you know the deal. Because of copyright issues, we cannot put the video embedded in here. So we're going to put the link for you in the upper right-hand corner. You can click on that, jump into the song, and then after the song's over, just come back here for the rest of the program, and we will go through the lyrics of the song. And anyone else listening, you should be just fine. All right, so here is this beautiful old song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back. All right, that's a short song, and as I said, the basic idea is just about loving the city of San Francisco. Okay, so let's go through the lyrics to this song. So it starts out, I left my heart in San Francisco. Sometimes I like to sing the lyrics on here. I'm not sure I can do it with this song because I forget how part of it goes. But the first part, I left my heart in San Francisco. What it means here, when it says I left my heart, when you leave your heart somewhere, it's talking about your heart like love and feelings and emotion. So it's saying that even though he's not in San Francisco anymore, his heart is still there. And when you say that, it means that you love that place. You miss that place. He's homesick he may not be homesick because that may not be his home, but he does miss it. He loves it there. So he misses San Francisco. That's what it means when you say you left your heart somewhere. Then it says, high on a hill, it calls to me. Okay. There's nothing really special there, except that maybe you may not know exactly about San Francisco. It's pretty hilly, so high on a hill. That's because it's a very hilly city, lots of hills there. It's considered one of the hilliest cities in all of America. Then it goes on to be where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars. All right, climbing halfway to the stars is again just the fact that it's one of the hilliest cities in America. So they climb really high. That's why it says halfway to the stars. But you may not know what a cable car is. What is a cable car? These used to be common, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago? Long time ago. 120 years ago? Long time ago. These used to be quite common. Well, maybe not 120 years ago. That's probably going back a little too far. But about 100 years ago. These used to be very common in lots of cities. I can think of a city near where I grew up where they had cable cars a long time ago. Back in the 1930s, they had cable cars. I remember seeing pictures of that. What a cable car is it kind of looks like a train car. And it runs on electricity. That's why I said probably not 120 years ago. That might be going back too far. It runs on electricity, so there is an electric cable across the top of it. That's why it's called a cable car. There's an electric cable that it gets its electricity from. So it runs on electricity, and then it runs on a track like a train does, but there's usually just one car running by itself. And it runs above ground on the streets, which is very interesting. You can imagine that one of the reasons they don't have these in very many places anymore is because with all the traffic out there, you kind of have to stop traffic when the cable car goes by, and it's just not very convenient. But they do still have them in some places. San Francisco still has them. I lived in Houston, Texas for a while. They have some there, not too many. They actually call it something different there. The name they use implies that it's more of a train system, but it is basically a cable car if you see it. So that's what a cable car is. It's like a little electric railroad. But I say little because it's usually just one car at a time. Okay, so then we go on to the next part. It says, the morning fog may chill the air. I don't care. All right, this is just another thing about San Francisco that you may not know. San Francisco tends to be very foggy. It's on the west coast of the U.S., so lots of fog comes in there. And then it says, my love waits there in San Francisco. That one is a little unclear. Does it just mean it waits there? In other words, he's left his love there because he's left his heart there? Or does it mean that he has a girlfriend there? It probably means that, which is why he also says he left his heart in San Francisco. It probably means that his girlfriend has been left behind in San Francisco. That's probably what the song is talking about. Again, a little unclear. I've told you before in the past that some of these songs, they don't try to explain exactly what they mean. They want you to interpret it for yourself. That's the whole point of music sometimes, is for the listener to take from the song whatever they want. So you can interpret that either way, that he's just saying that his love is left there because he misses it, or you can say that that's his girlfriend there. Okay, then it says above the blue and windy sea. All right, that's again, I just told you that it's on the west coast of the U.S. It's usually very windy there. And foggy. We talked about the fog before. It's right along the west coast. So if you think of like where Los Angeles is, same thing. San Francisco's a little north of there. Okay, when I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me. All right, so it says when I come home to you. So see, now we're back to thinking, oh, well, maybe he's just talking about being homesick. So again, you can interpret this however you want. It's up to you. Because it does sound like San Francisco's his home. But it could be both his home and he could have a girlfriend there. Both. Both could be true. Okay, so it says your golden sun will shine for me. Even though we talked about the fog and the chill and the wind, that's really based on which direction the wind is blowing from. If the wind blows from the west, it's usually quite foggy there. But if they get a southerly or a easterly wind, it's actually usually very sunny. You know, California is known for being very sunny. San Francisco is part of California. So your golden sun will shine for me. So even though it can be foggy a lot of times, it can also be very sunny. And it can be foggy and sunny in the same day. The sun can sometimes burn the fog off. So in the morning it starts out foggy, and then by the afternoon it's really sunny. So they get a lot of sun there as well. So your golden sun will shine for me. And then we just end with 2 lines. As I said, it's a short song. It says, when I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me. So we just repeat it. That's it. We just repeat that last line. Very short song we have today. So that's the end of this song. And I would recommend for you to go online and listen to other songs from Tony Bennett. He has a lot of them. They're older songs. Most of them are really slow and smooth. He does have a few that are a little bit jazzy or, a little bit more upbeat, a little faster. But they're mostly slow, smooth songs. Also, many of the songs that he performed with Lady Gaga are on YouTube. So if you just search Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga, and his last name, by the way, is spelled Bennett, Tony. First name Tony. You probably can spell that. That's Tony, Tony Bennett. And you can just search Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga. You will get lots of YouTube links there. And that may feel a little bit more modern and relevant to you if you're watching videos with him with Lady Gaga. And one thing I like to do on my programs is shine a light on some of the older and forgotten music while we do our English language examination as well. So I'd encourage you to check out more from Tony Bennett. And if you want that more modern spin on it, listen to his collab with Lady Gaga. Okay, thank you for joining us today for today's Musical Musings program. And please stay with us now, and make sure you tune back in next week as well, as we'll have another great song for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Musical, musical.